Hello out there to all the Back to the Future fans. I've been giving some serious thought about the movies and time travel and that, and I think that all of us miss the bigger picture of the movies. Is that essentially, not only is there time travel in it, but we are seeing a vast array of what I call the Back to the Future multiverse. Now, I apologize for the crudeness of this. I don't have a big board and all that. And right now, the coronavirus, so, we're kind of in a lockdown, so forgive me, but if you can see this, you got the regular timeline. Let's start 1885. Clara Clayton dies. No Doc Brown, no time travel back then. That is the original timeline. Clara Clayton dies, and that's where Clayton Ravine. Moving up to 1955, Doc comes up with the idea, after hanging a clock, for the flux capacitor. I think that in this original of 1955, where Marty's dad gets hit by the car, thusly how him and Lorraine fall in love because he was hit by the car, that there was no time travel at this point. There was no Marty at any point in this. Just a regular timeline. All the way from this point, 1885 to this, no time travel had ever existed. Doc comes up with the idea. Then, Doc, throughout the time, he's come up with his idea, makes his idea, comes out with the car, somehow befriends Marty, who he never met in the past, and then makes the time machine. And you're there at the Twin Pines Mall, named after the old man's Twin Pines. The Libyans show up, and we see Doc get shot. And we see Marty go back in time. So Marty goes back in time to a new point in time. But before we get to that, this original timeline, where we see Doc get shot, I theorize, since there was no time travel before that, in my theory of this multiverse, that at that point in time, when Doc was shot, there's no bulletproof vest, and Doc is dead. That's my theory on that. So therefore, there would be no Doc going to the future. Marty's future would have been uncertain at that point, because at that point in time, Marty does go back in time, causing an alternate timeline. So essentially, that would have been his regular timeline. I know this gets confusing when you think about it, but bear with me. Claire Clayton died, no time travel. Marty's parents meet, no time travel. Doc comes up with the idea, time travel, 1955. Builds time machine, somehow befriends Marty. Libyans kill him, no bulletproof vest. Just a theory, but think about that. So here we got the new 1955. 1955. Time travel. Right there. Brand new one. Original one, new one. We all know how Marty interferes. He saves his dad from getting hit by the car. So I'm still assuming at this point that Clayton Ravine is still that. There was no time travel up to that point because we are still in a multiverse. So we see what happens, the events that Marty changes the timeline. And he meets Doc Brown. So therefore, erasing all that, this helps Doc, who knows, do multiple changes to the time machine. We really don't know. So events happen, a whole new timeline for Marty. Going to the new 1985. So whatever timeline events that happened to Marty are gone. So thusly causing a multiverse. And the interesting thing about this is when Marty gets to 1985, after Doc helps him with the lightning strike and all that, Marty sees a whole new home. His mom and dad are getting along. They love each other. George is a writer, all that. So that means this Marty's life, he's the only one who remembers it. So I'm curious, did we go into a multiverse where the time machine crossed over into a different area of time, into a whole new thing? Did somehow the time machine save his mind and more or less prevent him from learning new stuff? But you got to remember, too, when he gets back to 1985, he arrived a couple hours or 20 minutes or so before Doc was shot. And we see already the name of the mall is called Lone Pine, instead of Twin Pine. And I'm assuming, since we never got to see it, that Marty that went back in time at this point in time in the new alternate 1985, he was different from our original Marty. We don't get to know that. And he goes back in time. Which makes me wonder, did that version of Marty that goes back in time to 1955, did he go into an alternate 1955? Or did he run into himself in a 1955? This doesn't really get answered. Because as you know, from this point in time, 1985, we go into the future of 2015, which Doc went to. Doc went there, he's seen that. So then Doc times travel back to this point in 1985, causing Marty to go forward with him, thusly creating a whole new 2015 scenario, which is interesting because if at this point in time Doc is still there in that 2015, that Doc that went back in time to bring Marty and Jennifer to that, Doc should have been still there at that point in time in 2015, thusly causing two different events to happen, which makes you wonder. So there's multiple Docs, multiple possibilities, and I still wonder about this point in time's Marty going back in time, thusly causing a whole nother timeline in which we didn't get to see. Or, as I say, are they breaching the time barrier, thusly entering into multi-universes? And the thing I wonder about this is that at this point in time, the Biff goes back in time and causes an alternate 55. So, therefore, we had two confirmed known 1955 to 1985 changes. So, was there a third from that Marty? Which gives you the paradox. So if a Marty went back in time, came back, went back, back, you'd have it going on. Different Marty, different Marty, different Marty, different Marty. Every time he come back, he would alter the time. But we know Biff changed the timeline. We've seen that alternate 1985 that Doc and Marty went back to, which makes me wonder, at that point in time, in the alternate 1985, was there more than one Marty, and was there more than one Doc in that point in time? Because when you seen Doc showing Marty the newspapers, it's shown where Doc was committed. So if he was committed, how was that Doc walking around? So it makes you think that there had to be some insane asylum there where Doc Brown is locked up. And according to Biff in the alternate 1985, Marty was supposed to be in Switzerland at some boarding school. So it stands to reason that there was Marty of that time period locked, or not locked, but he was over in Switzerland in a boarding school, and somewhere Doc was committed. So it stands to reason there is a multi-universe. And somehow this time machine is piggybacking into whatever one. I know it really makes you think, but it's just interesting, the events. And then, from the alternate 1985, whenever they find out when Biff got the book, they go back in time. And that Marty sees his past self. So it makes you wonder if the other Marty from the Lone Pine one, say if he did go back, say if he was different than the original Marty, because obviously he had a whole different life, if he's seen himself and he would conclude, wait a minute, there's myself, maybe he met up with Doc. Or maybe there was alterations in the time machine where he came back. It just makes you wonder. There's possibilities. All I know is that at some point, Doc travels back in time to 1885 after the lightning strike. And he altered that timeline, creating a whole different 1885 where he meets Clara and he falls in love and he gets shot by Tanner owing him money. So we have the original 1885 where Clara dies, never knew Doc. Then we have the new 1885, where Doc met her, but there's no Marty in that past point. No Marty at all. Did not time travel until you learn in the 1955 where Marty was stuck there after the DeLorean was struck by the lightning. So he goes back in time, thusly causing another alternate timeline. So we've had multiple timelines. We had what I call the prime timeline, where Claire dies. Then you have the new timeline, where Doc gets shot. And then you have it wiped out again by Marty. So a lot of fans get mad in the one why he didn't remember that his self seen that he was shot in the back. And this stands to reason with me, is there a multi-universe? And did a different point of Doc that went back not know from that point in time? You have the time travel, but is the time machine, like I say, going through it, but instead of staying the course, it goes into the alternate one? This could just be rambling of mine, but it just makes you really think if you pay attention to these movies. And the interesting thing is that when in the 1955 that Marty was in and had Doc help him discover the old DeLorean and all that, that when they take the picture of the grave, that when he's back in 1885 and it changes to show his Clint Eastwood character's name on it, and then just nothing, that they actually took a picture of just a plain grave, or the fact that it disappears from time whenever the whole stone gets broke. It's just interesting that they took a picture and it changed and it altered. This whole messing with time really messes with you. But thusly, if I didn't confuse you all, I just theorized that there is a multi-universe stuff, and that there was more than one Marty, and that there was more than one Doc, and that the space-time continuum not only got broke, it had a bubble effect into the multi-universe. And of course, I mean, you could theorize this from all kinds of comic books and other time travel stuff, where you have a multiverse, or we had that Into the Arrowverse recently on the television. But it makes you wonder. Just, I know a lot of people had that plot issue there with why Doc didn't remember why he sent him back and all that. And heck, they could have even created a whole other timeline where Doc still would have probably died and all that. But essentially what they could have done, since Doc left that message for Western Union, he should have had another letter sent there the next day at young Doc's house for them to say, put an extra can of gas in the car. I mean, that's how they could have broke the fourth wall again there and all that. I mean, if you ever seen Bill and Ted's Bogus Adventure, and even the first one where they said they're going to do something, and therefore they changed time, like remember trash can, and then the trash can fell on his dad. I mean, this is stuff they could have done. I know the writers weren't thinking all that, but it makes you wonder. So you as Back to the Future fans, I'm just curious what you think of my crazy rambling theory. Do you support this? Do you have any other further ideas if there was multiple universe? I mean, I still stand the reason that the other Marty that went back in time from the loan was way different than the Marty that we have from the universe where his mom and dad just didn't get along. George was a loser, got picked on. It stands to reason that there is multiple universes. And I think it could have been explored on more if they would have made more movies. In fact, they still could do it. What do you think? I hope all you're doing well in this coronavirus. And for you people in the future, if you see this, we were really bored and came up with stuff to do. But as I say, you hardcore Back to the Future fans, hope you like this. Give me your input. Till next time, this is Joshua Qualls. As always, subscribe and thank you.